It's more than just your output, more than a bike. When you hear your shout out, you know it's all right. Put on your magic pants and let's go. We're cruising into the power zone. Clip in, set yourself free. Come on and take a ride with me. You know what you need to know and what's it all about. Everything you need, it's on the Clip Out.
Welcome to the Clip Out Podcast, episode 469. This is Crystal O'Keefe.
And this is Tom O'Keefe. I feel like you're already in vacation mode.
Well, it's weird to record these out of order.
Yeah.
So
We stopped and started 4 times. I feel like we should have left it in. Be like one of those like hip hop songs in the early 2000s when it's like, what? Check my levels. Yo, count me in.
Count me in. Oh, God.
Remember when they would do that in all the songs?
Yeah.
Like
Callie Goulet or Goulet or whatever. What was her name? She did that.
yeah.
Oh, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
But she did one, and Eminem has one where he's like,
I believe
yeah,
you.
there was like, it was like this whole thing where they're like, am I just supposed to believe like he just or she just wandered into the studio and just like, I guess I'll just sing a song.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Just count me in.
There was no rehearsal
None.
or writing time given. This just all flowed from me.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
Just easy peasy.
What a peek behind the curtain. Thank you, M or M. So we are out this week. We are in Mexico. This is the week that we told you there wouldn't be a new episode. There is a
Yes.
new episode, but not
Yeah.
a traditional episode that you're used to hearing.
Different format.
So we sat down with the director of Spin Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a documentary that just played the Tribeca Film Festival. And who knows? By now, maybe we'll know if it got picked up and somebody.
God, I hope so.
But he talks about it. He'll talk about it momentarily. That like they shopped it to Netflix,
yeah.
and Hulu as a
I
series.
just don't understand how this did not get picked up.
I know because one, I just think this is such a popular thing. You would think they'd be like. I mean, they made a documentary about Lisa Frank.
Dude, Lisa Frank was popular.
Absolutely.
Don't you be hating on Lisa
But
Frank.
I'm just saying that, like, I think Peloton is as popular and current. Now, maybe it was the nostalgia angle. I don't know.
But why did one and not the other?
Right.
I do agree with that,
Yeah.
for sure.
And especially when, like, this story's got drama.
It's got drama.
It's got drama.
It's got so much drama. I
And-
know. I think we're going to have to do a bonus episode if it doesn't get picked up. I think we're going to have to do an episode where we deep dive about what the story is.
What happened?
Because
yeah.
there's so many people that are not going to get to know the story. And this is a good story.
Yeah, this is a really good story. And
Riveting.
And like you said, if you get a chance to see the documentary, if it plays somewhere near you, if it rolls out at all, or if it ends up on a streaming service, it's totally worth checking out. And I know that like a good chunk of it is not Peloton, and so if you're like, oh, I don't care, well, you're wrong.
You do care.
Like this is what led into the creation of Peloton. But again, if you like things getting messy, and who doesn't? Then this is for you.
Agreed.
So anyway, we are in Mexico. There will be a regular episode next week. We will return to form, whether that's good or bad for you. I don't know, but we will do all that next week. It'll be back in its normal time and format. But until then, here is our interview with the director of Spin Wars.
Checking in with the Peloton community.
So joining us today via the magic of ZoomTube is Philip Byron. He's a 5-time Emmy Award-winning producer, which is only 6 more than I've won, and the director behind the upcoming documentary Spin Wars. He's currently the head of original content at Shadow Lion. Phil spent nearly a decade at the Spring Hill Company producing over 50 projects for networks like HBO, Netflix, Disney+. Also the producer of the Broadway hit Titanic. Phil, welcome to the show. Phil or Philip?
Phil, thank you for asking.
Phil, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, I hate when people call me Thomas,
Or
Yeah.
at least nobody calls you Tommy.
except for my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, Philip, if you're angry with me, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll
You
go.
know, it is my name, and it just looks nicer typed out than Phil. But yes, you can call me Phil.
Okay.
And thank you
thanks
for the
for being here.
lovely intro.
Well, it's so exciting to have you here and to get to know you. You know, as a person who has watched the Peloton community grow, even without all the backdrop of the Flywheel, without SoulCycle, there has been so much drama within just the Peloton world. And I know there's been a lot. I knew there was a lot with SoulCycle and Flywheel. So when I saw that you were making this documentary, I was so excited to watch this. Like this is like I have been waiting for this moment for years to see this play out. And I have always thought it's fascinating because Marion is the person who did all the content at Peloton. So I was really like a little nervous, like where is this going to go? And is this going to make Peloton look bad? But let's start back at the beginning. What made you think this is a great story? I want to tell this story.
Yeah, I love it. So we have to go back to 2020, where a executive, Naomi Wright, who worked on my team at Spring Hill, came into one of our development meetings and was like, should we do a SoulCycle documentary? Like the WeWork documentary had just come out. There was going to be one about HQ trivia that was coming out. And, all these kind of business rise and fall, like nostalgia content plays were happening. So fun fact, I used to moonlight as an indoor cycling instructor, which we can get into. Yes. So I used to teach before work at 6:15 in the morning, would just come into work like, I've already had my whole day going. I've already taught a class. Like, let's go. And so when she brought this up, I said, well, do you know about Ruth Zuckerman? Because I always thought that story of Ruth being a co-founder of SoulCycle, but then kind of getting, erased from the narrative in the press was just crazy to me. And so, called Ruth, and she very willingly was down to do it. And then we really like got into it. And that's then when we, talked to Marion, who, I think the two of them really represent what I've been calling like the godmothers of indoor cycling. And I know there's a lot of people who did it before them, and it was happening in gyms all over. But in terms of that, just that specific vibe of like, creating a community, creating a demand of trying to get, bikes sold out as quickly as possible, the Polaroid images, all of that. Like it really did feel like it started with those two and their different gyms. And then,
They cracked the code.
They cracked the code. And then as we started just really getting into this, a lot more tea came out, if you will. So that was really how it started. And it was a pretty long journey. We were actually developing it as a series, as a multi-part series. And, this business that I've been in for a while, it has its ups and downs. And I thought this was going to be do people curse on this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
let it all
yeah.
out.
I'm on it. So, yeah.
This is going to be like a holy shit. We have like 4 places that want to do this. We have the access. The archive is amazing. Everyone knows SoulCycle. Everyone knows Peloton. It's this boutique fitness boom. And I was mistaken. It was, some of these projects I've done happen quickly, and then others are just, they take a long time to really find their way. And ultimately decided the only way that this is going to happen is if I just like really make it. And I have, amazing partners at my old company, Spring Hill, which is now Fullwell, and then Feed the Animals, who, we all just really like let's do this thing and let's turn it into a doc. And my vision board was always Tribeca. It's such a New York story. All 3 companies were founded in New York. The journalist Alex from Vox says it well, like, would these things be what they are if it weren't in New York, And I know you all are more of a Peloton podcast. So like, I think one thing to me when I was teaching that was a aha moment, my cousin was diehard Peloton pre-COVID. So she was like an early adopter. And I remember she was going to New York, and it was like, I'm gonna see the Empire State Building, I'm gonna see a Broadway show, and I'm gonna go to Cody Rigsby's class. And I was like, that's crazy that that's like in the list now of things people.
Well, it's funny because like we see it in our downloads.
We
Like
do.
we can go into our metrics and like the most popular city for this little show we do in our basement in St. Louis, Missouri, is New York City, like by a long shot.
Yeah, and right behind it, Chicago, Atlanta. But it's always been New York is the biggest, and always has stayed the biggest. It's funny, and I think there's an energy in New York that feeds that kind of, I don't know. It feeds all these people with their dreams and building things in a way that you don't necessarily see that energy in other cities. It's a special city. I love New York.
It is, and yeah, it's. I forget who says it in the film, but it's a hot club, and if you can't get in, you want to be there more, and that
Yeah.
happens in New York. Not to mention, the price point of these things, and being in a city where people could afford it at that time. Uh, it created that, it really was ahead of its time in terms of the that pay per class model, and adding, Ruth says it well, like pricing it up, because they were offering a very specific experience. But yeah, so the fact that it got into Tribeca was, dream come true. And now that it's a complete, story. But it was a hard process to cut it down to an hour and a half. Like, just to, I would love to hear more about what you all thought about the film, but just knowing your audience is more about Peloton, like we had to do a lot of the table setting, and so most of the film does live in that like early days, and then as all audiences want now, you got to get into the scandal stuff, of which there's been a lot. And so yeah, the Peloton piece, it does probably get the Peloton and Flywheel don't get a ton of screen time just by nature of telling the story in a short amount of time, but it it was sad to lose some of that stuff for me, as who's known about these brands and known about the drama, and how the word we use a lot is spincestuous behind closed doors. You all probably know about this. You probably talked about it, like the Alex Toussaint story of, he was, on the maintenance staff at
Yeah.
Flywheel, and then became an instructor, and then was poached to Peloton, and now is just like a superstar. Like, that is not in the movie anymore. Marion talking about finding Ally Love and Just King and Cody Rigsby, and like auditioning them, like all that stuff, which was so good. And maybe there'll be, it's why it's sad we don't have DVDs anymore with deleted scenes. But a lot of that was in there that is no longer, sadly.
What is
Well,
the hardest part that you cut? Like, what is, like, for you personally, what are you like the most sad you cut?
Oh, that is such a good question. There were just like lots of really good one-liners that had to go, like, which sucked. Like Heather McMahon, who, for those who don't know, amazing comedian, used to work at SoulCycle in West Hollywood at the front desk. She is just a one-line machine, but she talks about everyone walking around in the studio with their spin shoes, clip clopping like a bunch of Clydesdales. And that is just lives in my head all the time. If I'm ever walking around in spin shoes, I just now think of myself as a Clydesdale. I'm like, that line, Mary Beth Barone, who also worked at SoulCycle, who's a big comedian, and on this massive Amazon show now, was comparing SoulCycle to a cocaine habit, which, there was just like some good stuff like that. I mean, I found, personally, nerding out, I found the Flywheel Peloton lawsuit to always be really interesting. We went full in on that, and none of that's in there anymore. Because again, I think people like us and probably your listeners would find that fascinating. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
if
yeah.
like trying to get the broadest audience, they would nerd out on a lawsuit between Flywheel Sports and Peloton the way we all would. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that had to sadly go.
Did you guys go down the road of like the designers and Eric Valencia and all those kind of people? Were you in? Did that come up at all?
No, we did not go down that path. So,
Okay,
yeah, it was. We also were making this. We were putting together like a proof of concept. So
sure.
we only interviewed, so many people, and so Marion really was our Peloton voice. And then you see we had the voice of the people who use Peloton, like Heather McMahon and Anna Roisman, and the people who were riders. But were trying to get an instructor. It was just we were shooting the whole thing in a very short amount of time, spending as little money as possible, with the intention of this will be a series, and then we'll be able to interview a lot more people. And because that never happened, we were faced with making something with what we had in our toolbox. And, I'm very proud of what we were able to make. But yeah, we didn't go down that path with Marion. And I don't think anyone else who we interviewed would have even known about that, honestly. So
Yeah, we go deep in the weeds of
I love
Peloton.
it.
So
I love it.
that story is fascinating to me. So when you're putting this all together and you're like figuring out what you're going to include, what you're not going to include, how do you approach all the different people? I've always wondered about this, not just for this documentary, but every documentary, because there's always a side that comes off looking not great, and there's always a side that comes off looking much better. And so when you're pitching this to these people to interview, how do you do that? How do you go about that?
Yeah, that is taking off the director hat, like as a producer, that is such a big part of putting these shows together is getting, the word that everyone uses is access. It's just, you need the access to the person, which is exactly, Crystal, what you're saying of convincing somebody to be down to tell their story on camera. And it's never easy. I think the biggest thing is if people want to do it, they're going to say yes if they trust you. And, I'm lucky that I've made some great docs. So my resume kind of speaks for itself. And a lot of them have very prominent people in it. And at the end of the day, you don't want to do like a gotcha thing. Like that's
Yeah.
never, at least this stuff I've made. I know there's tons of producers and filmmakers out there who do that, and there's definitely an audience for that, and people love those types of projects. But for this one, again, it started with Ruth. I just knew her story. It was kind of why I ended up directing this. There was a point where we were meeting with potential directors, and people just didn't know the history of these brands the way I did, and so I was just like, I feel like I can do this, down to the like working with our production designer to design the interview looks, where I was like, I want this to be like Easter eggs, like of all the nostalgia of boutique fitness. Like, I don't know if other people would have necessarily gotten that, just having been someone who's, again, I taught at Flywheel and Equinox, but I've ridden at SoulCycle, I've ridden at Peloton, I've been on many Pelotons at people's houses. I personally don't have one, but I knew like every brand. And then with approaching, Marion, she just, honestly, I think it was one of those, like, it's like kind of an unsung hero situation. She genuinely was like, wait, what? You want to talk to me about this? And I don't know, like after talking to her on the phone, and our producer, Jillian, who really kind of led the initial convos with her, like, I was like, how has your story not been out there more? It was kind of shocking to me.
It is. And we should
Yeah.
say we watched it last night and loved it. Like this documentary is great. For anyone who loves Peloton or loves spinning in general, you're going to enjoy watching, because it's a little bit of a history lesson, but like not in an eat your vegetables way.
It's like a prequel to Peloton.
It is.
In a lot of ways.
It is.
And I will also say, as someone who loves a good documentary, and this is one, is that sometimes the most fascinating ones are where the stakes are low, right? Like, and I don't like, obviously the stakes were very high for the people involved. This was their livelihood. So I'm not trying to trivialize that. But for the general consumer, it's like, which fitness studio has more people doesn't really have a dramatic impact on your life. And it reminds me a lot of a documentary like King of Kong, where it's like these people fighting over who's going to get the high score in Donkey
Yeah.
Kong, and you hear the setup and you're like, who gives a shit? And then you start watching it, and by the end,
You are so invested.
you want to cut a bitch when they do some of that stuff, because it all over Donkey Kong, right? And so, obviously most people listening to us already have a vested interest in spin and the history of indoor cycling. But if you have a spouse or loved one who you think isn't going to enjoy this, they're wrong.
Yeah.
Like, they probably will. In the same way that, like, I never owned a Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper, but the Lisa Frank documentary was riveting.
It was.
Right?
It was.
So
Yeah.
it'll suck you in. It'll suck you in.
I also have to say that, like, I know, like, Marion, of all the Peloton instructors, is the one I know the least, because she was gone before I joined Peloton. My link to Marion, though, is that we have a very dear friend who has passed, Howie Godnick, and I don't know if you know the story, so I feel like I have to share it with you, but
Please.
he was the, like, spokesperson of Peloton, like, not in an official capacity, but he spread the word of Peloton. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, and he only knew about Peloton because of Marion. He used to take her classes when she was at the Zone, when she owned the Zone, and she told him about Peloton and got him back into spin. And he was so sad when Marion left. And, he would talk about her just in the most glowing terms. And I was always so sad that I didn't get to take any of her classes or get to know her. And so there would have been no Howie. And Howie left such an impression in the Peloton community, in the Peloton world. It's like, in my mind, you can't mention Marion without mentioning Howie for the people in this podcast. And so knowing how that's all linked, and then going back and seeing her story in this documentary, I was like ready to get up and throw down for Marion. I was so upset in how she was treated. I was so mad on her behalf. Like,
I know. I think that was going back to just pitching this as a series. It was a lot of, well, where, who got murdered? Where's I hate to say it, but, like, where's the, like, sexual abuse? Where's the this? Where's the that? Like, that's, it's unfortunate, because it's kind of our fault as consumers that these true crime docs just become number one every time. And everyone wants to, like, lean into that, which I get. But for me personally, the story of Ruth and Marion was always, like, in my heart. I was like, this is such a crazy, just, like, time period. It's about, entrepreneurship. It's about women supporting or not supporting women. It's how can you scale, like, community, which obviously Peloton has done a great job of. And I think a spoiler early in the film, Marion's talking about, for those listening who don't know, she had this kind of OG studio in the Hamptons called Zone Hampton. And it was the hottest place. And she says, I might misquote her, but, I wanted to think about replicating that, but I don't know how you could do that in an authentic way, which, kind of foreshadows SoulCycle's journey of scaling very quickly. So I'm happy you wanted to throw down for her, because I do too. And she's such an incredible, incredible person. And, she's going to come to the Tribeca premiere. She's going to do the post Q&A, which I'm really excited about. And, I showed a cut to her and Ruth, which was a nerve-wracking experience. That
I bet.
I've worked with a lot of directors who do that, and as a producer, I'm just like, oh, good luck. Like, I was like, I need to remember that there's a lot of weight to this for my future projects with different directors. And, I think the best thing was they both moved to tears. And they watched it separately, and I think they both were also very surprised how everything really got fit into such a tight, 88 minutes. Again, we all know the things that weren't in there, but I think just trying to boil it all down was the hardest part.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how cathartic it must have been for both of them to finally be able to kind of tell this story on a broader platform and to just know that at least it will be out there in some capacity after what they have gone through.
As
Yeah.
the truth, like the record of truth instead of
Yeah.
because when, again, spoiler, but when we were watching it and like they were interviewing the SoulCycle founders and they kept repeating the same phrases, the same stories over and over again, that's the story that people are going to know unless you do this documentary. And so I'm grateful that you did. I'm grateful that it's here and it exists, and that Ruth and Marion are getting the props they deserve for what they started.
Yeah. Good.
So what happens now? Like, you play a film festival.
How does it go?
And then does it roll out into theaters? Do you hope someone throws a bunch of money at you to put it on a Hulu or a Netflix, or like what are next
Yeah,
steps?
the goal is that someone wants to, license the film and put it on any platform so that everyone can see it.
Any platform but Crackle.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, no Crackle.
He's like, I'd
Look,
take a crackle.
might end up being- No, it's tough because there's, I don't know how much you all talk about just like the media landscape at all, just in general on this podcast.
A
lot.
It's, there was this rush, so much stuff being made, by these streamers, and then everyone's really kind of pulled back and tightened their belts, and it's hard, and it's one of those things too with these projects. Unfortunately, there's only so many places that you can go these days. It's like small, like everything's consolidating and consolidating and consolidating, and all these executives at these networks who I know very well, and many of them are friends. Like, they all are like, we know, Phil, you've told us about this story, like, and so the only thing you can hope is that people like yourselves like see it, watch it, talk about it, and then maybe they're like, oh, maybe I should watch that again, because before it was just a sizzle reel kind of selling the story, whereas now it's a full film. But yeah, the hope is that there's 4 showings at Tribeca, that enough people go and spread the word, and then someone wants to put it up. But I've had films that still live on a hard drive that I've produced,
Oh.
which it's heartbreaking. I really hope that doesn't happen with this. But to your point, the fact that they are getting to see it, and they will get to see it in the theater, which you never get to see documentaries in theaters. Like, I've only seen a few projects on a big screen, and I know a lot of Marion's OG Zone Hampton people are coming, and it's gonna be fun. I think the energy will hopefully be enough that someone to program this movie.
Gosh, I hope so. I mean, I'll tell you right now, even though we are going to be out of town the week that this happens, the first couple days that Tribeca is happening, which starts June 9th, if we were living in New York, I would have gotten tickets. Like, nobody could have stopped me. Like, I promise you, I would have had tickets the second they went on sale. But it's kind of hard when we live in the Midwest to make that happen.
Well,
But
I say that too, because I'm happy like that you live in the Midwest, because one of the big pieces of feedback we got a lot was Spin is coastal, and it's going to be too coastal. It's going to be too, cities or whatever, and it's not going to hit a broad audience. And my rebuttal to that, always kind of to bring it back to Peloton, is like, well, if it was coastal before, like, Peloton certainly made it global, and
yeah.
it's everyone, the word IP is used all the time. And I'm like, Peloton is IP. I mean, case in point, you all have an entire podcast built around Peloton. So I've always struggled with that feedback of it's coastal. I think there's another fun moment in the film talking about like the audition process to be an instructor. And Anna Roisman, who's a comedian and actually one of my very dear friends from college, about when she auditioned, and that this girl was in line with her, and she was from Kansas, and she flew to New York to audition. And I think that, yes, maybe they started on the coast, but there was this kind of like aspiration of people all over the country and the world who aspired to be and to this day, be a Peloton instructor, be a SoulCycle instructor. So yeah, I'm happy to hear you're holding it down for the Midwest, and I can prove that this is not a coastal thing.
Definitely
is
not.
I mean, what's more coastal than Broadway? But they still show the Tonys on network
Heck
television,
yeah.
right? So, and they said the same thing about Seinfeld. It's to New York,
Yeah,
right?
uh-huh.
And they
One of the greatest.
and ultimate irony. The reason they left Seinfeld, and Seinfeld tells the story, the reason they left it on the air is because it was performing, it was winning its time slot every week in one market that wasn't New York City. That market, St. Louis, Missouri.
Boom. Boom.
So,
we don't have much,
The
but we've got
impact.
that.
but we've got that. We've got that. So, but ultimately, regardless of that, it's just a fascinating story,
It is.
well told.
It's because it has nothing, like, even if you take spin out of it, I know it's in the title, so you shouldn't take spin out of it, but like it's a great story because, go ahead, Tom, you finished that. I'm sorry. I totally interrupted you.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's like it's one of those stories that it sucks you in regardless of whether or not you care about the core topic in the way that so many of the best documentaries do, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that just seems remarkably short-sighted
Yeah.
Well,
on the behalf of the people with the money.
He's like preaching to the choir.
preach. I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
Ariana Grande did an entire music video on spin bikes. Like, I don't know how it.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so I want to go back a second. You said you were a spin instructor at Flywheel. So now I know SoulCycle's audition process was insane. What was Flywheel's like?
Oh, fun. Yeah, it kind of was similar. I don't want to spoil too much about in the movie. I think SoulCycle, for people who don't know, there's this very elusive training program that if you get in, it's 8 weeks long, and again, others kind of texture and details we lost is there was a big thing where you had to get to New York on your own. You had to put yourself up, and like, yeah, that, which at that time, I think they eventually changed it where folks started getting paid like minimum wage to be in the training program. But yeah, in the early days, you had to get yourself there, put yourself up, and also like find side hustles to make money, which is hard to do when you're in class, training all day. So, I kind of also experienced that in a weird way, Flywheel, where one of my dear friends, shout out Lainey Kula, was a teacher at Flywheel. And I got to ride for free, which when I was like not, making much money in my 20s and could go to this class for free, I was like, hell yeah. And the thing that hooked me was the data, was the score, which
Yeah.
I imagine every listener here understands that because of Peloton. I got obsessed with that. Like I wasn't always I never really put myself on the leaderboard because I forget Peloton. If I know you see the rankings, can you like choose to be visible or invisible?
You can choose to hide it from yourself, but I think you're always on it if you're in a live class.
If you're in a
I
live
don't think
class.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you take like an on-demand class, you
Right.
nobody's seeing you.
Right.
So,
But you still see
yeah.
where you would fall in it. Because
Yes.
I actually have only done I've been in the studio at Peloton maybe twice. But yeah, I haven't really done a live class on the bike. I don't know why. I gotta change that. I know.
You do.
But I got obsessed with the score and just this metric of like, I need to meet or beat the score. And, then started taking other teachers, as like we all do, and you start finding other people you really like. And one day, Lainey was telling me they're going to have auditions. They need more instructors. They especially need more male instructors. And she was like, you should maybe try it. And it was wild. I literally like couldn't sleep that night and was like, I guess I'm going to do this thing. And it was kind of similar to the SoulCycle experience that we talk about in the film, where everyone shows up probably 35, 40 people. Some people in full face of makeup, which I thought was very wild. I get it, but I was just like, we're sweating.
Dress
And
for the job you want.
yeah, exactly. And it was really just to see if you could ride to the beat, which a lot of people can't, you know? So
Yeah,
they would have
I'm
you
one of
get,
those people.
so they had the instructor bike and they just would call, they'd be like, Crystal. And like they would put on a song and just see if you could find the beat. And then would have you like get out of the saddle and see what your form was like. And that was literally it. And what was wild is based off of that, I think of those 35, 40 people, I think like 6 of us were picked to go to then the like training
Oh,
program. And we trained with also, they were opening a studio in Seattle. So they did bring people down, they did fly them down and did put them up, as you should. And it was 5 days. And I'll never forget, I went into my boss at my TV exec day job, and was like, I need to take a week off. And he's like, oh, where are you going? Or like, are you, and I was like, I'm going to train to be a spin instructor. And he's like, you're the only person I know who would use vacation to go train for some other job. I was like, is this going to interfere? Is this going to interfere with work? I was like, no. And it was like, Godspeed. And it was kind of like a pretty intense in that day 2, it would be like, sorry, Tom's not here anymore. Like it was throughout the week, people would just not come back.
oh
It was
wow.
Survivor.
Yeah.
It was very much like Survivor, and it got all the way down. I can't remember the numbers for Seattle, but it got down to, it was just me and my still to this day friend Monica were the only 2 who became instructors out of that.
Hey, here's your pitch for Spin Wars 2. It's Peloton, and you get they're looking for their next instructor. And just winnow it down.
Yeah. So, and years later, Camilla, who I know now, teaches on Peloton.
Yes.
She was a flywheeler, so we overlapped as teachers for a while. But yeah, it was pretty cutthroat. The thing also that was in the like we have, but we didn't put in the movie, is just all about, and this is probably not the case as much with Peloton, but just where you get put on the schedule and being set up for success or not.
Oh.
Because you have to, build your following. And I remember that my first class was on Fridays at 6 p.m. in West Hollywood. And I was like 28. And I'm like, I don't want to be working out on a Friday at 6 p.m. Like,
Right.
That's like being a stripper on the lunch shift.
correct. And it was tough. And then they're like, oh, your classes aren't really like selling. And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit. It's Friday at 6 in West Hollywood. Like, by the way, I was having to like leave my job. And this is, back when you had to be in the office, like when things weren't as flexible. And I remember when I got my Spring Hill job being like, by the way, on Fridays, I'm going to need to leave at 5. Is that okay? Like thinking that it was going to be a big thing. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. But I was like, this is a hard time to like get people to come. And so then it's like, well, you can't build. So there's a lot of politics around that. I don't know if Peloton instructors feel that as well because of the on-demand nature. I feel like it's a little bit different because you could technically discover somebody, but maybe they do feel that way for the live classes. Like a Saturday at 9:30 is like a peak time.
I've heard some rumblings from instructors, like little comments that have been made when I've been near them or talking to them. And I've heard things like, that like I deserve a better time because I don't get to I don't get the live classes, or some instructors will have a lot of on-demand classes. They're teaching straight to camera. They don't have anybody in their classes. And it's like, obviously when you're performing, you're feeding off of people's energy. So it takes a lot more out of you to be really engaged when there's no one to engage with. And so
my
I
instructor
think
friends and I talk about that all the time of like, and you guys would have to keep me honest. Like I always remembered there being people in the studios until COVID. And then we would be like, God, like, it's humbling to teach to 3 people, which I have done. and it's rough. And you still got to give a great experience and a great workout and a great playlist. And when they were doing the Peloton classes in empty studios, I was like, this is intense. Like that they have to do this.
What's even crazier is that people prefer it at home. Like there are people that are like, I don't want all those people distracting me from the instructor. And I'm always like, that's
Interesting.
crazy. I
Yeah.
love their energy coming through the screen. Like that's
Especially when the whole idea was to replicate the vibe of a spin class, and then when they shifted to COVID, they had this influx of people, and they came into a world that didn't have
Yep.
people in the class. So
Yeah.
when they started to reintegrate them, it was a culture shock for them, even though it was a return to form for a lot of people. So it's fascinating. But yeah, it'd be like doing stand up with 4 people in the club.
yeah.
Like
I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
And then you
I can't
get,
imagine.
when you get put in a good spot. I remember like one of the first times I had a sold out class was around Thanksgiving because a lot of people would go out of town, of course. And it was a year where I stayed in LA. And so I got, by the way, there's never a more packed exercise time than Thanksgiving, FYI, like across the board. Just I think says something about our culture. It's like let's sweat before we like eat a lot of food. But that that was like 50 bikes all sold out, and it's a very euphoric experience. And you know off of what you were saying about these instructors not getting put in the right spots, like you then see how from that moment 4 or 5 people are like, wait, I want to start taking your class. And I'm like, do you want to ride at 6:15 a.m. because that's when I teach. So it's the kind of politics of where you get put goes to this kind of like whole like, are you a star instructor? Are you, because at the end of the day, as we know, it's a business, and it's about getting butts on bikes. In Peloton's case, I imagine it's a lot about the data of how many people are taking the live class, how many people are streaming it, connecting with them. And it's a weird thing because it's hard to not take it personally, because at the end of the day, it's like a representation, not of like your work. Like, are you a good writer? Are you a good, are you good at like selling insurance, or are you a good lawyer? It's like, are you like a good personality? Which is
Yeah.
just an odd thing to be judged for. And, one thing we talk about in the doc is like, you're incentivized to bring people in. And so I think because I had a full-time job, I never got like in it. But yeah, I would see like the person teaching after me, like be like, Tom, why were you not in class yesterday? And I'm like, this is intense. Like making Tom feel bad. Like, but it's, I don't know how the pay structure works at Peloton, but we did another thing that is not in the doc. At Flywheel, it was all about these tiers, and I feel like I can say this because they no longer exist. R.I.P.
what do they do?
I love Flywheel.
Yeah.
They would do tiers of if you had 1 to 17 people, you got paid this much. If you had
Oh.
18 to 34 people, I'll just tell you all I don't know if this was for everybody, but this is what it was for. Here's some exclusive
Ooh.
news. I'm like, I don't think there's any problem with me sharing this, but I do think it's interesting to think about it from like the business standpoint. So if you had 1 person to 17, you got paid $40. 18 to 34, you got paid $100. So right there, that's a pretty big increase.
Yeah.
And that was where, again, the incentivizing, if I looked and I had 17 people in my class, you better believe I was trying to find that 18th person.
Sure.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was odd that it's not prorated,
Yeah.
right? That it should be like, and you get, after 17, you get $3 for each additional
So that
person,
is what I
because
heard SoulCycle started to do, is they started doing
Okay.
it per bike. But I have to look back at the transcripts of some of these interviews. Like, I think it was like not as much as you'd think. It was like they got a base and then they
Yeah.
got like 50 cents per bike or something.
Yeah, because like if you're at 17, you're really incentivized to get that 18th. But if you're at 20,
then 30,
you're not incentivized at all.
35 to sold out, you got $200.
Oh, wow.
Which, to make $200 in an hour, pretty
Yeah.
freaking great.
Yeah.
You know, and that was such an interesting thing to see of how are people getting people to come to their class, which is a lot about connection. And another thing that I keep talking about stuff that's not in the film. And now I'm answering your question, Crystal, was about, you know, these companies started to kind of rise with Instagram and social media, and the fact that you could slide into someone's DMs and be like, I mean, people would do this, be like, you okay, Crystal? Haven't seen you in class for a while.
They would do that to their clients? Like the people, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And that, I think, is this weird, are you doing that because you actually care about Crystal's well-being?
Right.
Or are you doing that because it's the difference of you getting $40 or $100?
You need that 19th bike. Yeah.
Well, and then on the SoulCycle side, I don't know if it was like this on the Flywheel side, but in the documentary, you did talk about the fact that people who came in also, they were kind of treated, they were almost treated like they were celebrities and they wanted to be around those instructors. And it was also a popularity contest. The comment that was made was like, if you're not making them want to be you or have sex with you, then you're doing it wrong or something like that.
If don't want to be you or fuck you, you're not doing it right.
Was there that kind of vibe at Flywheel too? Because that is one thing Peloton is not. Like I'm not.
No, I think Flywheel and Peloton were kind of similar types of people.
That's the gist I've always gotten. Okay.
Yeah. Because it was, you know, it's funny because Ruth was a part of both Soul and Flywheel. And then Marion, you know, was part of Flywheel for a moment and Peloton. And I think just the data piece, it just, that's a different type of person. Like, if you want to track your metrics and you want to compete with yourself or with other people, I just think that that's a different type of human than what SoulCycle's thing was, like unplug and like find the beat and get lost in the music. And when I taught, I mean, again, and I've taken a lot of SoulCycle classes, and, you know, friends would be like, I don't want to look at that tech pack and like have that in my face. Like, I just want to get like lost and like cry to Coldplay. And I'm like, okay, like I don't like, I think that's just, again, it's like a different thing. And Corey, who's in the doc, you know, worked at SoulCycle corporate and talks about that, about Peloton, you know, coming to market and everyone at SoulCycle like rolling their eyes at Peloton and being like, well, this is a different experience. It's going for a different type of person. But that was something, you know, Ruth has always talked about, is SoulCycle became this kind of like more exclusive thing. Like,
yeah,
are you cool riding in the front row? You know, who's allowed in the front row? Some instructors had lists of who could be in the front row.
What?
Yep.
No.
And Flywheel was very much, you know, more of like inclusive, you know, come as you are. And I think Peloton is similar.
I saw SoulCycle for years, because even here we had them in the middle of nowhere, and I never was attracted to their brand. It's like so anti who I am, and like you can feel the exclusive you can feel it coming off of them in the same way you can, like, you go into a mall and there used to be like Abercrombie and Fitch, you know, and you could just feel that vibe coming off. And it's like, I've always just kind of rejected that sense. And so I had no interest in ever taking any of those classes. And it's funny to me that so many people were kind of like, oh, Peloton, what are you doing? Because I've always wanted to be an athlete. I've always wanted to exercise on a regular basis and be part of this thing. And it wasn't until Peloton came along that I actually felt included. I actually felt seen. I actually felt like, oh, they get it in a way that I never had at any other gym, any other location. And so I just, my body just rejects everything SoulCycle. Like everything in that movie, everything in the documentary was just toward them. Just blah. At least after they became
But I want to say
like
for
that.
any listeners who maybe dabble or are also do SoulCycle, like it, again, like I think it tapped into something very
Definitely.
successfully that where people did everything, I guess, Crystal, that you kind of rejected. A lot of other people, embraced. And I
Absolutely.
think what I also loved so much about Marion is her just ability to kind of acknowledge the success they did in terms of marketing, and how she was like both annoyed by it, but also like good on you, and like they figured it out. And I think that takes, a very humble human being to be able to kind of acknowledge and reflect that way on it. Because, at that era, and I lived in New York City like 2009, 10, and 11, like it was a thing to be, bike for on a Saturday at 9:30. And, when I moved out to LA, and my first job out here where it was like this big open office floor plan, I remember everyone's Outlook alarms going off on Mondays at 11:55. It was wild to book SoulCycle. And I'm new to this company and trying to meet people. And you better believe I went to a SoulCycle class with all the like fun, fit, cool girls at my company. And so there is something about the wanting to belong and feel seen, which is a big theme in the film. And I think the question becomes, when you go in, do you drink the Kool-Aid? Do you lean in? Do you love the experience, or do you not? And that is for you to decide where you find your
Yeah.
fitness experience.
Where are you going to land?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Phil, thank you so much for taking time and talking to us a little extra long. This has been fascinating. So just to recap, you're at the Tribeca Film Festival, but we don't know quite yet where this will land for those of us in flyover country.
We do not know yet, but
Okay.
Crossing my fingers, it's
shout
going
it
to go
out.
well.
Cross the fingers,
Yeah.
cross the toes. But yes, it'll
Well,
be.
you'll have to be sure.
Since you said you have a lot of New York listeners,
Yeah.
it is June 9th, 10th, 12th, and 13th. You can just get a ticket on the Tribeca website, and yeah, it'll be a fun time.
Wonderful.
Awesome. And then whenever when it hits broader, thinking positive.
Yes.
I learned that from one of the Peloton instructors.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll let us know so we can let people know.
I will let you know. And I appreciate you all
Awesome.
reaching out and even like talking about it early on. I had like a few friends send me your episode where you talked about this when it was announced.
So stoked. You just don't even know.
Yeah. And thank you for watching it. And yeah, tell people, because I think.
And where can they find you and or the film on socials?
The film is Spin Wars Movie on Instagram. Okay. I am not on socials. I am on LinkedIn. Want to add me on LinkedIn?
You're such a grown-up.
I know. It's like
very grown-up.
Yes. So please follow. That's where the news will be posted as well. We're going to start rolling out hopefully some more clips and things for people to see as we get closer to the festival.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
Of course. Great to meet you all.
Thank you. Great to meet you too.